First up, we have Samantha, and yeah, it's looking pretty good so far. I would say that overall it looks a little too tall and narrow compared to the artwork. That it should be a little more shorter and fatter. Maybe just shorter would be sufficient. I think this thickness here could be thinner to be more like that. Um, might take all these and switch to component mode and then select these vertices and move it down a bit, and yeah, that's already looking a little bit better. I think maybe go a little wider here. Maybe that's alright. Get those top windows in, and this detail's looking pretty good. Add the detail of the door and all that, and the window frames. But yeah, I think you're clearly paying attention to proportions, and get those adjusted somewhat, and then keep going with the detail. Next up, we have Herminia, and yeah, this looks good. I think you're coming along nicely. You have a fair amount of detail in there already. I think take a look at the proportions a little bit. I think it's pretty close. I just look at the height of these compared to the overall height of this, and then the height of these. So if you were measuring by windows, I would say there's like maybe half a window, probably less than half a window below, so that's not too bad. But there's probably like one, two, maybe to the very top more than three. But here there's just two by the time you get up here. Maybe it's not so different. Anyways, it looks a bit tall to me on yours. I think that could come down a little bit. That looks a touch thick, but it's not too bad. These kind of extends a little bit too far, so scale that in a little bit. But I would say it's nice that you've added this little bit for there, but I think that's a lot thinner and flatter, so thin that out. You can add in the chair if you want, and I think these things stick out a little bit too far. I would kind of push those back a little bit, and same with this side one. And look at how thin that line is compared to the thickness here. So I think just take a close look at some of the details and stuff. But overall, you're doing a good job. You've gone beyond just the blocking, got some details in, and that's good. Next up is Jared. I was not able to open your file in my 2015, so I was able to open it in 2018. So I expect that's the version you made it in, or not sure, but it looks like it wasn't made in my 2015. I do recommend using my 2015 Service Pack 6 for this class, so we're all in the same version. So yeah, just taking a look at this, and yeah, I think overall this is a good start. You are paying attention to the proportions. I think you could add this little ramp in here, kind of cut that away and add that ramp in. That will look nice. Start adding the details in, like the bench and these kind of little details on the columns that you see, and these kind of edge pieces on the building. You could even add that little bit of damage here if you wanted to the corner of the top there. And you're already getting into the window panes, which is good, except that these look a bit thick compared to those, so I would thin these out quite a bit. Could do all of them at the same time, something probably a little bit more like that, and then get the window frame going around the whole thing. So yeah, I think this is good progress, and I think maybe the building's both the top and bottom of the building is too narrow in this direction. It looks very thin, and it just looks like there's room for a door and a window here on the side, so you can add that in the model. But also just generally that kind of indicates to me that there's really more width to that and the top of that than you've shown. So which maybe in the whole platform is going to be wider as well, and I tend to think it would be. So I'd make the whole platform wider, I'd make the building wider. But yeah, overall the door looks a little big compared to the building. Maybe it's alright. but yeah, so fix some of those proportions and keep going. And if you can, at this point, you can't seem to open this file in 2015. So if you do want to um, use 2015 and you install it, if you select all your surfaces, I'll just turn all objects off and select surfaces here and pick all my surfaces, and then you can do File, Export Selection Options, and then you should find OBJ export. You export that as an OBJ. You should be able to import that into 2015. Also, you might check Windows Settings Preferences, Plugin Manager, and make sure that um, OBJ export is turned on. OBJ export and loaded, both of those, so that you'll have that option there if you do want to export it, so that you can import it into my 2015. Next up is Shaka, and yeah, so it looks like you got some of the basic shapes in there. Think take a look at the proportions. Think that first thing I noticed that these columns you've made are quite thick compared to these. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have 5, but yours appear to be thicker. Also, I feel like they're more towards the front of this, and I think that therefore also this piece maybe could tilt up a little bit. I'll just select the vertices of it and move this up, and so that helps a little bit. And then yeah, it looks like you're paying attention to the proportions of these different pieces. I would just say though, things I think the whole thing needs to spread out horizontally more. I think it's too short this direction, because um, I'm just looking at the space like between this door and the edge of the building and the edge of the building and that door. But then when you look here, there's just, because it's like there's about one door's width from here to the edge of the building, and then another door's width from here to here. But this has only one door's width between the two of them, so to me that would need to double. So I think you're going to want to spread this all out much more, um, and pay attention to those distances and fix the proportions. And but besides that, you've got the basic shapes in there, and you can fix some proportions and then start adding in the detail. Next up is Tara, and yeah, overall it's looking pretty good. I think that just looking at proportions, I think the height of this railing thing looks much smaller here relative to the size of the building than when you've got here. So I might adjust that, and I think the distance between the door and this edge looks a little wider than what you've got there. So you might want to try to give that more space. Maybe the whole building might need to be a little bit wider, maybe. But mostly I think the proportions are pretty close and pretty thoughtful about the way you've done everything. I think these pieces could be a little more narrow. These window pane separators look a little thick to me, so try making those a little more narrow. And yeah, you can add these little pieces there, that piece along the top. As you start, some detailing in the door, some panels there in the door, some detail on the columns. You have them as round, but I read these as square with these extra details. I know it's hard to see from the image. So yeah, overall I think you're doing well. You've already started to add some detail, and it's looking good. Make some little proportion adjustments, and then continue with the detail. Okay, next up is Gabrielle, and I can see you've got a lot of the basic shapes in there. I think you could work on some of your proportions and positioning. For example, the angle of this I think is much too steep, and it's much too long compared to that. So I might start by just going to right mouse click and grab the vertices and move this up and back. And also this line, in yours this lines up with the top, but in this one it's much further down the wall. I'm going to right mouse click, go back to object mode, so you'd want to move that down some, and then it also runs the length of the building to the edge, and some funny stuff going on with the surface. But yeah, I don't know why you've extended these bits out, if that was intentional or not, because I don't see that over here. I'm just going to get some of these out of the way. I'm just deleting some of these to see this better. I think these proportions are okay. I think that these might be a little smaller. Could be a little smaller. And this one to me looks like it should be a little lower on the wall. Because I think it's actually at the same height as these. Or very close to the same height as those. But here you have it much higher. Yeah, I think you want to, try to make this top piece here seamless with the rest of the wall, and also the roof should kind of slant back. I might just take the verts here and, oops, we didn't get that one. Let's try that again. I'm going to go back to object mode, select all of these, go to component mode, pick all of these vertices. There we go. Move that down, because that slight slant, I might have done it too much, but you get the idea. You can, something like that. Yeah, and also note how these columns, this goes pretty much right to the edge where yours are, inside a lot. So, spread these out so they get all the way to the edge. So yeah, some proportional things to fix first, and then start adding details like the window panes and frames and all that kind of stuff. Next up is Faith. One thing Faith mentioned in her post was that she was having trouble moving objects. So the reasons, I don't know why that happened, but my guesses are that one, if you've got any of these snap things on, that can get in the way. So like if I have grid snap on, I might think, I'm trying to adjust it a small amount and it's jumping around. Or if I had like a curve snap on, it might, act kind of weird too and not move. So make sure these are off if you're having a strange problem. The next thing is to just double click the tool and hit the reset button to make sure it's all in the normal mode, because the move tool has a number of special sort of constraints that could be put on it that you might do accidentally to avoid. Yeah, first kind of overall looking at the proportions. I think that the buildings maybe a bit wider and a bit I may extend it back further in this direction a little bit. I noticed there's 5 columns here and you have 4, so I would get that extra column to fit. And I would say relative to the size of the building, your windows are quite big. I like to measure things by use like a window to measure something. So I would say looking at this window, that this edge of this window is about maybe 2 windows or a window and a half's width, using the window as a measuring stick, sort of like 1.5 windows from the edge. And this window is maybe 1 window from the edge, maybe less than that. And then they're probably greater than 1 window's width apart. And these are far enough apart, but those are sort of closer together. And look at all the space between this window and that edge, and you don't have much there. And it's good that you noticed that the windows at the bottom are wider, but I think you could look at the spacing there as well, especially here. So one approach might be, in this case, is I might take all of these surfaces here and switch to component mode and carefully select just these vertices on the edge there, making sure I didn't get any other ones. Actually, I might need these inside ones too. Let's go into the front view. I just do hotbox and then click in the center and go to front view. I might want to get all of those. And then just, oh, probably not this window though. So maybe something like that. And that makes my building wider and, gives me that extra space that I want over here. And then you might do that on the other end a little bit as well. I might grab all of these, maybe up to here to get the inside of this surface here, and then pull this out. Not as much, but somewhat. And then you can adjust the position of the individual windows as well by just selecting those and moving that around to adjust the positioning. So you may want to adjust the position of those to match better, and then do your columns again to get those to match. And then I can show you a little trick for the stairs, where we can kind of accurately put the right number of steps there. So let's first count the steps: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 steps. So we want 16 total steps. And I'm just going to start with a cube and probably put the pivot point of that cube at the corner. So I'm going to hold down D and V at the same time and middle mouse drag until it snaps to that corner. And then hold down V and middle mouse drag to just pop it up there. And let's go here and make this a lot smaller. And just kind of eyeball that first one. They're pretty narrow, this way. Okay. So, got one. What did I say, 19? I can't remember. So then I need to measure some distances. So I need to measure the distance this way and that way separately. So let's actually, maybe I'll look at this from the right view here, and here's my little step. So I'm going to create measure tools, distance tool, and let's click, let's say here, and I'll line it up with that, and here, and I can see the horizontal distance, we'll call that 10.6, and just to round up, to make it easy, 10.6 in this direction, which is you can see Z pointed out this way, so that's the negative Z direction. So 10.6 in the negative Z direction, and then up we want to go from, let's say, is it here or here? Let me see where I put that pivot point again. The bottom, so probably at the bottom of this. So create a new measure tool, and from here to about here, what is that, 9.13, I guess, 9.14 to round up. Okay, so I'll keep those on the screen to help me remember. So I'm going to select this first guy, and to edit, duplicate special options, and first I'm going to reset the settings. And so I can do multiple duplicates at once this way. So this column is the X axis, this is the Y, and this is the Z. So I can see z right here. That's positive z pointing out this way. So this is the negative z direction. So I want 19 of these to be spread out across 10.6 grid units. So I'm just going to get out my calculator, and 10.6 grid units divided by 19 is 0.5578. Let's call it 0.558. And so that's in the negative z direction. So this is z, so minus 0.558, enter. And then for the vertical direction, also 19 of these divided by 9.14, let's call it, just round up. So, sorry, the other way around, 9.14 divided by 19.481. Okay. So in the y direction, that's a positive y direction. You can see that right here. 0.481. So each duplicate will be moved up that, moved up that much and moved in the z direction that much. And we already have one, so we need 18 more. Let's see if I did this right. Oh yeah, looks pretty good. Okay. So that's a nice way to do something like stairs. They look like they're not spaced apart far enough to me. Maybe I need them thinner, which I can still do actually. After they've been created. Give them a little more space. And I also think, looking at the whole thing, they are pretty narrow this way. Well, anyways, it's pretty close. So that's a nice way to do that kind of thing, and you can do the same with these. And actually these will be a little bit easier because first count or estimate how many there are, and then measure just this one distance, and then you don't have to do the, in this case we had to do y and z. In that case you would just have to do it looks like this is the x direction. You can see x is going across here, and so you could just duplicate across. So you could just make one of these guys and duplicate with the whole group if you figure out how many and how far with the measuring tools. So that's a handy trick. Other kind of things, I think your awning here is a bit too kind of slanted and big. I think that could be shortened a little bit, maybe moved up, something like that. And maybe the porch is a bit deep, maybe. So you could scale that back and move these back a little bit. And there's this weird, I don't know what happened here, probably something to do with your booleans, but you could probably fix this by just sort of pulling this stuff back down. Okay, well anyway, work on the proportions and start adding the details and keep going. Okay, next up is Connor, and yeah, I think this is a good start. You've noticed some things here like this cutout corner, which is good. You've done the stairs this way, which doesn't really match those, so I might redo that so it's more of this ladder style here. There's plenty of little details like you can add like these boards and stuff like that. I think that the proportions are a little off. I see this as kind of taller and narrower than you have it. I might take this whole thing and group it, Control G for group, and then scale it up a bit and see how that looks. Although I'm getting these, whoops, then I'll have to kind of adjust these a bit. And this whole bottom here got messed up from doing that, but I think I'll just take those, go into component mode, and pick the vertices there and move those back down to line that up again. And I think this is a much kind of flatter roof. You have it much steeper. So I would maybe take these and go into component mode there and grab these guys and move them up quite a bit, maybe to there. Yeah, and then I'll have to correspondingly. Well, that's interesting because it does seem to overlap a good bit of that. Maybe this could come up even higher compared to that. Anyway, oops. Just grabbing these points and moving those up now. And then, of course, these need to go. Oh, that's all separate, huh? Just grab all those at the same time. Okay, something like that. And then maybe this facade stuff, maybe that needs to come up even higher, compared to the roof of the building. I don't know. What do you think? Did I go too far? I don't know. Anyway, I think it does need to be elongated, something like that. And but yeah, overall, you've got a good start. Get the door cut in the side here, and add some detail. And I think that this platform looks a bit high for me. I think it could be a little thinner. And I think it extends. To me, it looks like it's a little hard to tell from this edge, but to me, it looks like it extends beyond the edge of the building, so that this comes out further. Where you have it ending right at the edge of the building, I think it goes out further. But yeah, good work so far. Keep going. Okay, next up is Terrence. First of all, this is looking really good. I feel like you've gotten further along than most, and there's a lot of nice detail in here already. So that's great. And you mentioned the proportions. Yeah, I think they might be a little off. What it looks like to me is it just looks overall kind of a little tall and stretched. We could try selecting everything and grouping it and scaling the whole thing down. See if we can get away with that. Already that looks better. I think that maybe this board is a bit thick. I would go quite a bit smaller with that. You could start, adding some detailed shapes to the columns here. You could, put in these guys here, and but you already have a lot of detail, so that's pretty good. I mean, this could get further rounded if you want. See if it lets us do the multi-cut tool to add some edge loops. I'm going to hold down Control. Yeah, it is. That's good. And I can hold down Shift and it'll snap it to the middle there. And then once those are in, I'll select every other edge. Oh, I don't want the whole edge though. I only want. Actually, it probably doesn't make any difference. Oops. Let's start again. This one. This one. This one. Just double clicking and holding down Shift. Then if I move all these up, it's kind of, oops, except for I can't go too far. It's looking a little bit more rounded. Maybe these guys need to come up a little bit more. Maybe this one. Just a bit. I know you can go back in and add more if you want to. And yeah, but overall, really good work on this. It's pretty advanced for this stage. So nice job. Okay, next up is Anthony, and as this is coming along, you've already started to add some detail, which is good. I think there's some proportions issues. For example, these windows on the side look much bigger than these, and I think overall it's pretty good. Maybe a little wider, the whole thing. And I would again say, yeah, that these windows are much bigger than the ones here. And yeah, for example, your windows line up with the top of the door, and these come short of the top of the door. Also, I think they're more narrow, and I think if the whole building was wider, it would also help with the kind of relative size of the windows. Yeah, and you'll want to add these things here and complete this structure on top there. Get some detail like this to the columns would be good. And yeah, I think those are the main things. I think mostly it's coming along well. I think that you can notice that the window sill at the bottom and this thing on the top extend out further than the than the window pane separators. So if you wanted to add a little, oh, I guess you do have something there, do you? Or maybe you can even just grab this face and just pull it out a little bit. Yeah, that would be easy. So you can just pull those out. Some. Maybe that's too far, but it also seems like it gets like narrower towards the top, so you could take like these bottom verts and kind of move them up like that, for the windows. And I think this is actually much thinner, so I might take if I select this and shift double click here, that'll go all the way around that, and then I'll take this one also and then scale these thinner, so that bottom one's thinner, maybe, I don't know, adjust it to line up with this or something like that. That'll give you a little bit better of a frame. So yeah, good progress so far. Just keep going. Okay, this is Christopher, and yeah, this is coming along well. I can tell you're paying attention to the proportions, and looking pretty good. I would think that maybe some of these doors are a bit big. Like when I look at the size of this door, and then this door frame looks kind of big to me. And that one looks a bit wide. Maybe this window could be a little lower. And this one as well could be lower. And then this looks a bit tall to me. Maybe pull this down. Just go into component mode, and because it's just a little bit higher than this one, and this one. Maybe more like that. And I think that it's good that what you're trying to do here. Let me show you kind of a more. Just trying to think of what would be the best way to do this, because you're going to want that thing on top, and just a few different approaches. I mean, I guess rather than using a sphere, I would start with a cylinder, Um, so I'll create a cylinder, and let's just rotate. If I hold down E and then click, I get this marking menu, and I can go to discrete rotate, and then it'll like snap into 15-degree increments, which is a nice way to rotate. And let's just go to the front view and get this kind of lined up to the middle of this building as best we can, and maybe a little smaller, something like that. Okay. And how's that? Bigger? Maybe bigger. But we tuck more of it down, something like that. Anyway, you can adjust for size, but then, the other thing is, if we want to increase, just to make it a little smoother, we can increase subdivision axis by clicking here, and then middle mouse dragging, and upping those a little bit. And then to get this edge here, what I would do is I'm going to do it on the whole thing, and then I'll delete off the bottom half. So I want to select all the front faces of this. So I'm going to go to face, and I'll just select all of them, and then I'll go to the side, and I'll use Control Select to deselect the ones off the sides and back. Oh, I missed some of these. Let's do that from the right view here. F for frame selected, and I'll Control Select these. I'm just holding down the space bar for the hotbox, click in the middle, and then I can switch my views that way. That's how I like to switch views. So, and then I'll extrude face. I like to do Shift right mouse click, gives me this menu, and I'll go to extrude face, and then I'll just click that to get my scale manipulator in the center and just scale it a little bit till I get the width of this edge thing, something like that. And then I can select this, Shift double click the one next to it, and get that whole ring around, and then Shift right mouse click again, extrude face, pull that out a little bit, to match, I guess, what you've got there. Maybe that was too thick, but anyways, at least you have the process now. And then I need to kind of just delete off the bottom of it. Let's say, like up to here or something, and not these. Is that about right? Maybe not these. Something like that. Anyway, you can, fine tune it when you do it, but at least you can see the process I would do to get something that's a little closer to that. Okay, so yeah, good progress, and I'm not sure what's with the different pieces here, if you were going to do those individual boards or what, but I guess fix that up, and yeah, keep going. I like that you've got these. That's a nice detail to notice, these things under here. Okay. I can't remember if I got your name right on this. This is Christopher's, by the way. Okay, next up is Justin, and yeah, this is coming along pretty well. It's good that you already got the roof thing built, and I think the proportions are pretty good. Got the windows in and the doorway for the saloon doors. I think if you can replace these columns with ones with more detail as you start getting into detail, that would be good. You might want to kind of count these and kind of match them, because yours looked a little thinner and a little further spaced apart than these, so it might be good to get that closer. We've got this sort of odd thing going on here because of the bent surface, but it's easy to get that sharper edge back in. If we go to Mesh Tools, Multi-Cut Tool, and I'm going to click on that, see like it highlights where the point's going to be on the corner, so I click there and then here, then put Enter, and I get that kind of sharp edge that I think you want, sort of. You can also do, let's see what happens if we go to Shift right mouse click, Soften Harden Edge, there you go. And now you can really see that corner, which is better, I think, for this. And yeah. What else? Yeah, there's some detail, I think. Just lots of little details, window frames, these little edges here. You can put the signs in. Yeah, but it's coming along well. Okay, this is Henri, and I'm just going to get rid of these just to get them out of our way. Yeah, this is a good start. Proportions are looking pretty good to me. I think that maybe this window is going to be more narrow, and maybe lower down. See, it almost lines up with the bottom of that. That doorway may be a bit wide, but maybe it's alright. I like that you're already looking at some of this detail. That's good. On the columns, and these awnings look good. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of detail left to add, obviously, but this is a nice start for your blocking. You'll want to fill that in, and one way to do that is if I grab the multi-cut tool. You'll notice I use that a lot. I'm going to hold the control key and it'll give me an extra edge loop there, and then select tool and right mouse click vertex, and I'll select these and push those out to here, something like that. To close that up. Oh, why is there still a gap? I don't know. Anyways, getting there, and try to get it real tight. Looks like it's not perfectly flat for some reason. No? Oh. Like it's moved up somehow. Did I do that? I think maybe I did that. Let me just... double click on this tool and switch. I'm on world. Why does it seem like Y up is that way? It is. It's like this whole thing is upside down. That's kind of funny. Your whole model is upside down, which doesn't really matter, but it's just a bit confusing. Anyway, so I mean, what you could do is just select everything. I can tell the whole thing's upside down because Y is pointing that way. And if I do like view, default view, you can see your hotel's upside down. So what I would do is select everything, group it, flip it over 180 degrees in the Y-axis. Whoops. What happened there? Oh, I did translate, sorry. It would be rotate 180 degrees. Oh, that's weird. I guess it would be around the X or the Z. My bad. Okay. There. So now the hotel's right side up. Yeah. So anyways, good proportions, good work so far, and just keep going. Next up is Stephanie, and you've got some of the basic shapes here. I think I'd like to see you a little further along at this point, at least having the holes for the doors and the windows and stuff put in. I think I'll show you a little bit on how you might do this shape, what I would do is I wouldn't use that, and I'm going to grab the multi-cut tool and I'll hold down control and I can put in these splits, so it might be better to do it from the front so I get it nice and even here. So maybe here and here, there and there. I can always move these afterwards too. I might have gone a little narrow. I can take these, right mouse click edge, Sherman selection tool, and double click. I can use the scale to spread them out a little bit if I didn't get it right the first time. Maybe double click, spread these out a little bit more too, maybe touch that way, something like that. And then I can take just these two edges here, just shift selecting those two and move this up, and then I've got that shape. And then I might take the multi-cut tool again and hold down control and get this little edge there. That might be a little too thick, but anyways, and then right mouse click, go to faces, select one face, shift, double click on its neighbor, and it'll do, actually we don't want the whole way around, actually we'll do this one, and then we'll shift double click on that one, and it'll just do the front ones for us. And then shift, right mouse click, go down to extrude face. I can pull that out a little bit. Maybe that's too much. Okay. And then you get that. I don't think my proportions are right. I think this is narrower. But anyways, at least you get the process and you can tweak it with more time. So yeah, I think I would have liked to see to get a little further with this by this point, but you know, keep going.